Namaskar. I'm Harpreet Kaur and I welcome you all to our live and interactive online training program on Instructional Design for Techno-Pedagogy Integration. You are watching us live on PM eVidya channels 6 to 12 and also on our YouTube handle NCERT Official. Today we are in day 3 of the training program where the topic that we are taking up is Instructional Design for Development of eContent. You can also be a part of this training session by giving us a call on the phone number 8800440559. We also have an email ID for you, that is training.helpdesk@cit.nic.in, and on our YouTube handle NCERT Official, you can send us your questions, suggestions, and of course your feedback. Now, friends, it's a training program, so there is going to be an assessment as well, which will take place on the last day of the training session. That's on day 5, Friday. So once the session gets over, assessment courses will be released. If you wish to attempt the assessment and you score more than 70%, you will be granted a certificate that you can download from Diksha portal. And for all this information, we request you to kindly follow our guidelines on CIT website. Now, to know the relevance of topic and what all we are going to learn here on day 3, we have our expert with us. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Rekha Chavhan. Ma'am is Associate Professor from Department of Education, SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. Ma'am, namaskar and very warm welcome to the session.
Namaskar.
Ma'am, before you go ahead with your presentation and you delve deep into the topic, I request you to kindly share a glimpse of what exactly you'll be covering with us today.
Yeah. So, Namaskar once and all for this session. Today, I'm going to talk about what is e-content, what is the relevance of this topic in today's context, and then I will also make you to understand what are the different phases of developing e-content, different types of e-content, and application of e-content in different fields. So that will be the scope of my today's presentation. As we all know, e-content has become very important in today's context, especially in the digital era. So that will be the focus of my presentation.
Right.
Now, moving ahead with the topic, I'll like to begin with this case study. So here is the situation given where Department of Education is planning to launch a blended learning program for school teachers on the topic innovative classroom assessment techniques. And this program will be delivered through the learning management system. It must include interactive e-content that teachers can access anytime. You are a part of that instructional design team, and now your responsibility is to create the e-content. So, how to go about? What are the challenges the team will face when they are planning to design the e-content? So, I will take you to this particular situation and try to elaborate how anyone can design the and develop the e-content. So let us move on to the challenges what one can face in development and design of e-content. So when we talk about the challenges are multifaceted. There are challenges related to the learners. There are challenges related to the content. There are challenges related to the technology, and some challenges related to the resource and the time, challenges related to the implementation, and how one can evaluate that effectiveness of the e-content. So when we talk about the learner related challenge, there are many more. Like, for example, when we talk about the learner related challenge, what are their age group, right? What are their learning style? What are their digital skills? All those things we need to keep in mind. Then when we talk about specifically the content related challenge, the difficulty level of the content, right? How we can make the content more interactive, more accessible to the learner, right? How to keep the content engaging at the same time, how to make the content relevant, accurate for the learner. Now, then when we talk about the technology related challenges, when we are talking about e-content is something wherein we will be using the technology, right? So when we are using the technology, what challenges one may come across? Say, for example, the very first challenge is as I was talking about learner-related challenges, wherein the digital literacy, right, digital skills which are required very much in designing and developing the e-content. So, am I literate enough to design that e-content? How much I'm aware about the technology which can be used in designing, maybe the tools, maybe the different softwares, different platforms to be used. So, one should be aware of all the challenges which are pertaining to technology. Then comes the resource related challenges. Now, when we talk about the resource, it is a material resource, it is a human resource, and also time as a resource, right? Because when we plan to design any e-content, it is a time consuming process. And many times that e-content has to be completed within a stipulated time. Say, for example, you have been asked to design a e-content and the time given is 3 months. So within that 3 months, what are the resources available to me in terms of the finance, in terms of the technology, in terms of the human being, which will be involved in designing and developing the e-content. So all those challenges I need to understand first, and how to overcome those challenges again is a big task in front of the designing team. Then it comes the implementation. Once your content is ready, then the phase of implementation comes in picture. So how to implement it? What are the different platforms we can use it for implementation? How to procure that particular content? All these challenges are related to implementation. And then comes to test the effectiveness of that e-content, whether the e-content was meeting the requirement of the learners, whether the e-content is effective in terms of making the content accessible to all. So all these things also need to be tested and evaluated. So these are some of the challenges when any teacher or any person for that matter who decides to design and develop the e-content. Now, with those challenges, after understanding those challenges, let us try to understand what is e-content. So when we talk about e-content is any kind of a digital content that can be transmitted over computer networks. We make use of the machines, the mobile phone, the computer to deliver the e-content. Now, when we talk about e-content, these are of various types. It includes the text, images, graphics, animations, audio, video, and so on. So, as per your content requirement, you decide which form of e-content will be more suitable to my content, which form of e-content will be more suitable to my target audience, right? So, depending on the requirement of the content, depending on the requirement of the audience for whom you are designing the content, you can choose those different types of e-content. Now, these e-content can be in forms of various types, as you can see on the screen. It can be image, it can be video, audio, animations, infographics, and interactive content. Nowadays, when we talk about designing the e-content, many times one of the drawback is that when we develop the e-content and we want our learners to access that e-content, many times it becomes monotonous, or many times student or the learners who doesn't sustain their motivation in learning if the content is not interactive. It's very easy to conduct the interaction in a classroom. But especially when we are talking about e-content, it becomes a difficult challenge on the part of the designer and a developer to make it more interactive. Now, why to make it more interactive? Because unless it is interactive, learners will not find any interest by learning those, by referring those e-content. So it's very important to make it more interactive. Now, there are different tools which can be used. Tomorrow you will have a session wherein you will be learning about the different tools which can be used in designing the e-content. So in brief, we can say e-content is any kind of a digital content which can be transmitted by using the computer. Now, when we talk about the e-content, there are various forms. The e-content may be in the form of a text, it can be in the form of image, video, and sound. Just now I spoke about it. So, as per the content requirement and as per the learner requirement, one can decide which form of e-content he or she may be interested in designing and developing. Now, if you can see in this particular image, when we talk about a different forms of e-content, there are multiple forms of e-content. So especially when we talk about visual kind of a form of a e-content, it can be in the form of image. So when you are deciding to make the use of image as a e-content, then what are the different sources from I can download the image, right? it should not be copyrighted. All those precautions one need to take when we are deciding to take image as a e-content. Then there are different tools and softwares which can be used for designing the graphics. Say for example, the Canva. Canva can be used to make your e-content more engaging, more interactive, at the same time more appealing to the learner. So when we talk about the visual content, it should be in the form of an image, it should be in the form of graphic. And what one precaution we need to take? You can take those particular image by using the FOSS, freely available open source softwares. Then the content also is in the form of text. Now, when we are using the text, it can be in multiple formats. It can be the Word doc, it can be the PDF. But then too, it should not be very monotonous, right? While you are using the text in your as a e-content, that text also needs to be more interactive. So how we can do that? By way of including the examples, by way of including inserting some images in between, by way of including some activities, right, which is in the textual form, where the learner will be reading and he is expected to do some action on that particular text after reading it. So we can have the text format of the e-content. Then the e-content can also be in the form of games, right? As per the requirement of the content and the age group of the content, you can always design the different types of games which can be used as the e-content. Then there are certain other forms such as the e-journals, the various databases, the presentations, and these are some of the content which are in various forms. If you look at the right hand side of this particular image, e-content can also be in the form of audio, right? We can develop the podcast which the learner will be listening and just recap what he or she has learned, right? So audio also can be, our podcast also can be used as a e-content for recapping the content, for revising the content, and also for the teaching learning process, right? Teaching learning purpose as well. Then e-content in form of video, in form of simulations, right? At times, it becomes very difficult to give the live experiences considering the risk, right? So at times, it's very easy to make use of various simulative situations which can be used as a e-content, which makes learning more engaging, more interactive also, and more enjoyable as well. If it is possible, also try we can make use of animations, interactives, ebooks, right? And when we talk about other forms of e-content, nowadays, a lot of augmented and virtual reality are also in picture. So how I can make use of those augmented reality and virtual reality, that also can be think of when we are designing the e-content, and that really gives real experiences to the learner. And then of course we can have the e-content in the forms of books, right? So books can be downloaded, books can be suggested for further reading and also as for the teaching learning purpose. Now some of that content I have already explained. So when we talk about the text based materials, it may be in the form of notes, it can be in the form of articles, and also in the form of ebooks. Now, only referring text will not make your content very effective, right? So you also need to think of how one can employ the multimedia in developing the e-content. So you can always think of making use of audio, video, and animations for designing your e-content. Then, as I was talking about, when we decide to deliver the content which is in the e-form, at times it becomes very monotonous. At times it cannot sustain the interest and motivations of the learner. So how to make it more interactive, right? So that learner will be also active in that process of learning. Because when we talk about e-content, many times it becomes one-way transmission of information. So we also need to think of how I can insert the quizzes in my content, how I can make use of simulations and games in my content, so that the learner will also be active in the teaching learning process. So we need to think of what are the different forms of interactive content. Again, there are various tools available which can be used for creating the interactive e-content, right? Like for example, you can make use of Edpuzzle, you can make use of H5P as a tool and as a software to create a different kind of interactive e-content. Then of course, as per the content requirement, as per the need of the learner, you can also think of making use of the virtual labs and augmented reality, because these are the things which are very much in, and one should also learn how to make use of this type of e-content so that we can make the teaching learning process more effective, interesting, and real also. Now, there are different formats of e-content. So, like when we talk about the text kind of e-content, it can be in the form of PDF, it can be in the form of docx, or it can be in the form of ebook. So, we as a developer and a designer need to know what are the different file formats available when we decide to deliver the content which is in the form of a text. Then when specifically we decide to make use of images and graphics, then too it is available in different formats like PNG, JPEG, JPG, SVG, GIF, and so on. Again, I would like to emphasize, depending on the learner need, depending on the content requirement need, and depending on keeping the things in mind, how I can make it more effective, right? You can decide any one format. Like for example, rather than just giving the static image, it's always effective to make use of the GIFs, right? Which is moving, which is, looks like rather than referring the static image, everyone would like to have learning from the GIFs. So depending on the content requirement, and in order to make it more effective, one can decide whether to which different format of image can be used while designing the e-content. Then comes the audio kind of e-content. Now this audio also is can be in the form of MP3, can be in the form of WAV, or can be in the form of AAC. So as per the requirement, one can choose which format will be more suitable for designing your e-content and developing your e-content. Then video, right? As we all know, right? When we read the things, we remember very less, right? When we see the thing, we remember better than just reading. And when we have the reading, the motion pictures, or when the content is in the form of video, it is more effective, right? So make sure that whenever you are developing the content, there should be videos. It should be combination of all rather, right? Some content in the form of text, some content in the form of image, and audio and video. Again, when we talk about the video type of a content, again, it is available in different formats. So as per your need, as per your content requirement, one can decide which file format of video will be more suitable for that content. Then when we are making use of spreadsheet, right, as a e-content, then too it is available in different formats. So as per the need of the learner, as per the need of the effectiveness, how to make the content more effective, one can decide which format will be more suitable. And then interactives. I have already mentioned how important it is to make the content interactive, because for the simple reason, if you want to make it more enjoyable, more interactive, more engaging, it is very important to make use of the interactive element in your development of your e-content. Now, till now we have understood what are the different formats, right? What are the different types of e-content? And in order to make it more effective, what are things one need to keep in mind, right? So first and foremost thing, very important for designing and developing the e-content is a system framework, right? ISD talks about systematic way of planning and designing your e-content, starting from the analysis phase till the evaluation phase, right? You have yeah, also learned about the different models of designing e-content. So as per the need of your content, as per the need requirement necessary for developing the e-content, one can decide which model can be used, or how one can systematically structure the content so that there will be more logical sequencing of the content, and from difficulty level of the content can also be ensured by systematically designing the content. So that is very important, how systematically you are making use of the different models, different frameworks for designing your e-content. Generally, ADDIE model is used. It is a generic model for designing any kind of e-content, right? And it has different phases. And as per the different steps and phases of your e-content, you can uh, develop your e-content. Then, second most important aspect is the learner-centeredness, for whom we are developing that e-content, right? So, who are my target audience? What are their requirement? What are their needs? focusing on that, one need to develop the e-content. At times it becomes very difficult to visualize or to assume who will be my target audience. But then too, as far as possible, try to get the information about your target audience for whom you are developing your e-content. And considering that are characteristics of that target audience or the audience for whom you are designing the content, if you design your content, it is becomes more effective for them to learn, right? So focus on the need and the engagement of the learner, right? It should not be teacher oriented content, but it should be more interactive, more engaging for them. And for that, make sure that your content is learner centered and it is not just the transmission of information. So how it can become learner centered? When the learner is active, right? When the learner is active and when the learner is engaging in the learning process, right? So focus on the need and engagement of the learner while designing the e-content. So rather than just having the content in the text format, what we can do, make the element of interactiveness in that developing that e-content so that it will become more learner centered. Then interactive design, just now I spoke about how important it is to make it interactive, right? Engage take the active participation of the learner. Now I know it's become very difficult on the part of the designer and developer to take the active participation in a face-to-face classroom. It's very easy, right, to take the active participation, but when it comes to delivering the content which is in the a format, how to take the active participation, what kind of activities I need to plan for it, so that all the time learner is not simply watching the video, but rather learner is active, he's doing something, he's acting, so he's solving the quiz in between, he's doing some activity in between. That element also we need to keep in mind in whatever content we are designing. Maybe simply the text also can be become more interactive, right? Any format, any content for that matter, the video, right, the simulation, every content can make interactive by applying various tools which are available. Then ultimately, what I'm intending my learner to learn from that e-content, that also we need to keep in mind whenever we are designing any content, right? So ensure that clear and measurable learning outcomes are set for the content, right? When I'm designing the content, I need to conduct a various type of analysis. Who are my learners? What are the content I will be going to cover? And from that content, what I'm expecting, what I'm intending my learners to learn, that also we need to keep in mind. And according to the objectives or the learning outcomes of your content, you can design the experiences for the learner, and also at the same time you can design the assessment task for the learner, right? So what I'm intending my learner to learn at the end, that becomes very important whenever we are designing the e-content. It should not be mere for the purpose of transmitting the information, right? But rather we want our learners to learn something out of it, right? Maybe what skill the learner will develop, what kind of values he is going to develop, right? So what is the purpose of my e-content, that also we need to keep in mind. And what I'm intending my learner to learn, that also we need to keep in mind whenever we are developing any kind of e-content. So these things also we need to keep in mind when we are designing any e-content. Now, while designing the e-content, there are certain principles we need to keep in mind. So the very first principle is the chunking of information, right? So when I say chunking of information, what do? We need to break the information into small chunks, small part of a content, so that at one time the learner will be learning that, mastering that particular content, and then the learner is going to the next content. So you need to break down your content for better understanding, right? It should not be very monotonous. Lot of content is covered, and the teacher is only going on talking and talking. It should not be like that. Let them have a small chunk of content, then the assessment, again a small chunk of content, then the assignment. So in this way, you need to break down your content into small chunks. That is very important. Then comes the accessibility and inclusivity, right? Whenever we are designing the e-content, as I said in the beginning, I need to know my target group for whom I'm designing that content, right? What are their age group? What are their learning styles? What are their prior knowledge, right? If those things I keep in mind and develop my content, then it will be more accessible to them, and then it will be more inclusive, right? I don't know what are their, what I will say. Say, for example, I need to know what are their prior knowledge, right? It's very important, because if I don't consider prior knowledge, whatever new content I'm delivering, it may happen that there is a gap between what they don't know and what they are learning now, right? So it should be accessible, right? It should be inclusive. It should cater the diverse learners. Diversity in terms of the socioeconomic background, diversity in terms of their gender, diversity in terms of their culture, from where they have come. All those things I need to keep in mind and ensure that you are including those components in your content, right? So that is very important to think whenever we are designing any kind of a e-content. Then comes alignment with the learning objectives. It's very necessary, right? When we talk about the teaching learning process, there are three major pillars, or there are three major components we need to keep in mind. First, we set the objectives. Then, according to the objectives or learning outcomes, we design the learning experiences for the learner, and then we evaluate the learner, right? So there should be alignment within these three things. What are my learning outcomes, what experiences I'm providing, maybe in terms of the what e-content I have developed, maybe the video, maybe the text, maybe the animation, maybe the simulations. Okay, so as per the learning outcomes, we are designing the learning experiences, we are developing the e-content for the learner, and then whether the learning has happened or not, whether I have met my objectives and learning outcomes or not, for that purpose, we need to conduct the evaluation. So there should be the alignment between your objectives, the experiences. Experiences is nothing but the e-content what you have designed for them and developed for them, and the assessment. Okay. So it should be aligned with learning objective, experiences, and your evaluation. Then it's very important to make it more interactive. From beginning, I'm talking about how important it is, right? Sustaining the motivation and interest of the learners is a big challenge. And in order to foster this particular, in order to tackle this particular challenge and foster the engagement of the learners, it becomes very important to develop the content which is in the form of interactive content. Okay. And it's very important to give the feedback, right? There should be mechanism in your e-content wherein after going through the content, the learner is self-assessing, right? Learner is checking how much he or she has understood. Okay, so that also we need to keep in mind that feedback is very important. And whenever you are giving the feedback, make sure that it's a constructive feedback, right? Where the learner went wrong, what were the mistakes happened by the learner, right? How the content could have been better in another manner, right? So also suggest them how it could have been better, right? Also suggest them some more references for the content. Maybe in your e-content, your scope is limited, right? Or you can give a little scope for your content, but you want your learner to further enhance their learning, right? So at times, it depends on what kind of feedback they are getting, what kind of other extra resources you are providing to them, that will also enhance their learning. And this is how we can foster the engagement. Then continuous evaluation and improvement. It's not a kind of a job where my e-content is not now ready and I really don't need to work on it again, right? But rather, every time you need to keep updating your e-content, because at times it happens whatever content you have designed and developed, that may now become obsolete, that may have now become not updated, or new knowledge has not been included in the e-content. So it's very important to improvise your e-content, whatever you have developed and designed, and adapting to the learner needs and enhancing the effectiveness. It's very important, right? To adapt the learner needs, your content should be adaptive to the learner needs. So it's very important to understand what are the needs of my learner, what do they want to learn from that content, and then design your and develop your e-content. So it should be more of customer focus, right? Who are my audience? What are their requirement? What are their needs? That I need to keep in mind, and accordingly I need to improvise and evaluate my content time to time. It's very important. So if we follow these particular principles, definitely your e-content can become more effective, more engaging, and Also, you can achieve your, whatever objectives and learning outcomes you have set for the target audience. So these are the very important principles one should keep in mind whenever we are designing any kind of e-content. Now, the another very important thing to understand is what are the different aspects of e-content development, right? As I already spoken about, you should know the target audience, right? So when I'm talking about target audience, why it is important? It is important because for whom I am developing the content, right? Is it suitable to them? Do they require this kind of e-content? That also we need to know, right? You just cannot produce anything which is not required, right? You should always consider your target audience for whom you are designing your e-content. So understanding the learner needs and their preferences, from which particular mode they want to learn, what they prefer more, right? Do they prefer more hands-on activities in terms of e-content? Do they prefer more multimedia in that e-content? So that you need to keep in mind, and that you need to first assess before designing your e-content. And of course, the learner characteristics. As I already spoken, the characteristics in terms of their age group for whom you are designing the content, their background, socioeconomic background, right? Then their learning styles, right? Diversity in terms of their culture, right? Language preference for them, in which language they will like to learn, right? In which language they will more comfortable. That also you need to keep in mind whenever you are designing the content for your target audience. Then content engagement. Your content should not be one way transmission of information. It should focus more on engagement of the learner. So how engaging your content, and that engagement of the content depends on varied kind of activities, varied multimedia, use of multimedia, what you have thought of for developing your content. That plays a very important role. So you need to make your content more engaging. If it is engaging, then only it will sustain the interest and motivation of your learner. So think of how to make the content more engaging. Then there are certain pedagogical considerations, right? When I talk about the pedagogy is the thing but the art and science of teaching, right? Which method will be more suitable? Which technique will be more suitable for delivering this content? That also we need to understand whenever we are thinking of developing any kind of e-content. And then the presentation, it matters a lot, right? How, which kind of presentation format you are going to use? Oh, sorry. So are you planning to use the content which is in the form of a visual? Are you planning to use a content which is in the form of video? Again, depending on your target audience, depending on the content requirement, you can think of how I can make my content more effective for the learner. And there the role of presentation comes in picture. Then it is also very important to understand the technical aspects, right? We need to consider the compatibility and accessibility of the content, right? At times it becomes very difficult to access the content if it is in different formats. So see to it that which format will be more accessible to the learner, because at the end, the whole purpose of developing the e-content is to reaching out to the masses, right? To make it accessible to all. So at times it should not be become a technical glitch on the part of a learner to download the content or to reply or to respond to that particular content. So make sure that in which format, in which particular type of a content you are delivering, that is accessible to the learner or not, right? And compatibility. At times it become very difficult that some of the kind of e-content is not compatible with your machines, with your system, with your devices, what you are using for accessing it. So see to it that how much compatible it is for that suitability of the content. Then we need to keep in mind the administrative consideration as well, right? So managing the content effectively and aligning it with goals, that becomes very important. What different kind of administrative components I need to consider, how they will play the role in my delivering of the e-content, that also matters some more, right? So let us have a look at these aspects in detail. So when I talk about the target audience, I need to consider the socio-cultural background of my learner, my target audience, their language proficiency, their ability level. Are they uh, are they digitally competent? Do they have the digital skills which are required for accessing the content? That also one need to keep in mind. And of course, how I can make them emotionally engaged in the content, right? I need to understand their psyche. I need to understand their emotions. Because when we are considering those factors in learning while designing the content, it becomes more effective on the part of learner as far as the learning is concerned. And we can take their active engagement, right? When we consider their emotional level also while designing the content. So these are some of the aspects which are related to the target that we should keep in mind. So there are few more aspects like the perspectives of the my target audience. What kind of attitude they are carrying? What do they have the interest in learning by this particular mode of learning, multimedia, or are they comfortable using those multimedia? Those aspects also plays a very important role because if they are not pro or if they don't have the positive attitude, they may not like to access your content. So we need to understand their perspectives and how they can make use of this particular accessibility of that particular content in a more better manner. Clear and accessible communication as far as possible. Whatever type of e-content you are developing, make sure that your communication is very simple. You are not making use of a very, what I would say is the technical terms, right? Because at times it become very difficult to understand the technical terms, right? So make sure that you are giving the illustrations, the examples, so that they can easily comprehend it. Then see to it that how you can motivate them and how you can sustain their motivation throughout the process of learning. And you should always have the tailor made approach, right? One size fits for all doesn't work in this particular uh, uh, activity. So we need to understand as per the need of my learner, I need to tailor my content, I need to tailor my experiences, and I also need to tailor my assessment task, right? So that is very important how I'm tailoring, how I'm adapting my content as per the needs of my target audience. That's very important because if they feel their need is not getting fulfilled, they may not like to access your content. So it's very important to understand the psyche of the learner. Then as far as the content is concerned, make sure that whatever content you are delivering, it should be accurate, right? Take the content from the what I would say from the different sites, authentic sites, and see to don't take the content from the Google or from the Wikipedia. Rather, go to the authentic sites depending on the content requirement and take the content from that particular site and see to it that whether that content is authentic or not. It's very important because it will be reaching to the masses. So at times it may happen that some of them may feel no, this is not accurate content. What content is delivered through your content is not accurate at all. So see to it that it should be very precise and accurate. Then it should be relevant, right? It should not happen ki, without understanding my learner, without understanding the content requirement, I'm delivering my content or I'm developing my e-content. There should always be the relevance. Why it is important to have the relevance? Because if there is no relevance, the learner will not feel satisfied. Always we see to it that how this particular content is going to help me, what kind of skills I'm going to develop in myself, right? After learning. So that content should be relevant to them, relevant to their need, relevant to their interest, relevant to their age group, and relevant to the learning outcomes what you have set for them, right? So see to it that your content should be relevant with your topic, with your content. Then time to time verify your content, right? As we know, knowledge is exploding so fast, so new things are coming, right? So accordingly we need to update and we need to verify our content and we need to improvise as and when needed. Then audience appropriateness, right? Whatever examples or whatever activities you are planning to for your target audience, it should be appropriate for them, right? They should not feel that the e-content what is planned or the examples which is given by the teacher in that e-content is not at all relevant or it is not for us. They should not feel isolated. They should not feel their needs are not getting fulfilled. So it should be appropriate as per their need. So tailor the content to the learner's level. It should not be too difficult. It should not be too easy, right? So we see to it that the content what you have prepared is catering the average masses, right? And make sure that you are giving the real life experiences, because when the content is delivered by using the real life experiences, it gets connected to the learner. They feel something which is relevant to them. So see to it that you are giving the examples from the real life experiences rather than just taking the examples given in the text or from the textbook. So these are the some precautions we need to take when we talk about the content which we are selecting for the development of a e-content. Then another aspect is the pedagogical consideration. So when we talk about pedagogy, the very first thing is I should know the purpose of my development of e-content. For what purpose I'm developing? What are my objectives? What kind of learning outcomes I want to be achieved from that e-content? What I have designed, okay, or what I have developed. So your objective should be very precise and very clear. And while setting the objectives, of course, you can follow the Bloom's taxonomy, right? Starting from the remember level till the create level. So is my content providing them the understanding of that particular topic? Is my content developing the skills in them to apply that content in their day-to-day life? Is my content developing the analytical skills in them? Is my content developing the creative component of their personality? So those things also we need to keep in mind. So starting from the lower level of cognition till the higher level of cognition, you should frame your learning outcomes and objectives for the content. Then comes the delivery. How I'm going to deliver it. Am I going to upload my content on the social media? Am I going to upload my content through my Google Classroom, in my Google Classroom? So what kind of delivery method I'll be using, right? Am I going to have the interactions? Am I going to have the multimedia content? What kind of delivery I'll be using for delivering my content, right? Whether it will be the mode of print media, whether it will be the audio and video. So all those things I should keep in mind whenever I'm developing the e-content. Then the media selection, as I just spoken about, after deciding the methods, right? What method will be more suitable? Will it be the demonstration? Will it be the experimentation? Will it be some kind of lecture method? Will it be the kind of a simulation? Will it be the kind of a hands-on activity? So those are the different methods as per the content requirement and as per the learner requirement. I need to decide beforehand. Then for that particular content and considering that particular learning outcome and objectives, I need to decide which media will be more effective, right, for delivering that content. Whether it will be print media, whether it will be audio and video media, right? Or I can make use of different kind of multimedia, combination of different medias, right? So that also I need to consider when I'm deciding the pedagogy for that particular content. Then the presentation format, right? In which format, whether it will be the PPT, right? Whether it will be with a spreadsheet, whether it will be the Word doc, whether it will be the PDF. So that whether it will be kind of an image. So that also I need to keep in mind whenever I'm developing my content. Then comes use of examples, illustrations, and of course the learning engagement. And then at the end, how I'm going to assess my learners, right? What different tasks I have designed for them, right? Are they expected to draw a concept map? Are they expected to write a summary of that particular content? Are they expected to write in a discussion forum what they have learned, right? So that different types of authentic assessment tasks also I need to consider, again keeping in mind my learning outcomes, right? What are my learning outcomes? What kind of experiences they are getting? And then how I can ensure that the learning outcomes or the objectives which I have set are met or not through the different modes of assessment, right? That assessment also, as far as the e-content is concerned, sometimes we ask them to submit the file, right? So assessment can be in the file format, which they will be uploading maybe on your LMS or maybe in your Google Classroom. Or sometimes I may ask them to do the field visit and write a report, right? Or sometimes the assessment also can be in the form of HF interactive content by way of making use of different tools, right? So what kind of assessment I'll be doing? Are they expected to prepare the presentation of that particular content, what they have learned, right? Then if they are making the presentation, am I ready with the rubrics which to be used for their assessment? So all those things I need to keep in mind whenever I'm talking about the pedagogical considerations. Then comes the presentation. So aesthetic matters a lot, right? First, they see your content. If they like, then they will may go in deep and they will try to explore. So ensure that aesthetically it is looking very good, right? Maybe, say for example, when you're thinking of creating a YouTube video, right? So your thumbnail plays a very important role. What kind of thumbnail is you are using? Is it simply your photo, or are you making use of any kind of image pertaining to the topic? So those things also you should keep in mind whenever you are deciding to, develop any kind of e-content. So aesthetics also need to be considered. Then values, literary and values, that also we need to keep in mind. And the font size, of course, right? It should neither be too small or too big, right? Right. Then the personalization, is the content they feel personalized, if they feel yes it is as per their need, and interactivity of course, and suitability to the learners, is it related to their needs, is it meeting their needs? That also we need to keep in mind whenever we are thinking of deciding which format of presentation you will be using for designing and developing your e-content. Then there are some technical consideration also one need to keep in mind. So when we talk about the technical consideration, it is the usability, adaptability, loading time. Your content should not take too much time in loading, right? And what kind of licenses you have used. It should not be copyrighted material. It should not, uh, violate the ethics, right? So those things you should keep in mind. Then the duration, right? If you have a video of 30 minutes or 40 minutes, it will not be very effective. No one would like to listen the video which is of 30 minutes, right? So see to it that whatever format of e-content you are developing, the duration is less, not much. Then accessibility, is it easily accessible? Then at times it becomes very difficult for them to navigate, right? So your interface should be easy to access, and it should be simple, kind of a instruction should be provided, and it should be labeled so that it will be very easy for them to navigate. And what kind of different file formats, right? There are different file formats which you ask the learner to submit as a part of assignment. So that also you see to it that whether the file format is supporting your LMS or not, or whether the file format, the size of the file, it is supporting or not, because at times it becomes very difficult. If your file is very heavy, it cannot be uploaded. So those technical considerations you should keep in mind whenever you are developing your e-content. Then there are some administrative considerations. So delivery mechanism, how I'm going to deliver my content, which platform I'll be using, right? Then the training. At times it becomes very important to train the teachers how they can access the material, how they can upload the content on the different platforms what they are going to use, right? Then infrastructure requirement and technological requirement is very important. Then sources of procurement and how I'm going to maintain that content which is already developed. Then some support system is required. Say for example, if your e-content is requires kind of accessibility of internet, so make sure that your institute is
Right,
providing
ma'am.
that. And the cost, of course, is very important. It should not be very costly affair on the part of the developer as well as on the part of a learner.
True. So, ma'am, because we do not have enough time left in the session, we have to wrap up this presentation over here. But since you have
Definitely to
shown
make
this last page, you can, yeah, explain it very briefly.
Yeah, yeah. So already they have learned about the process of developing e-content by using the ID model. So I'm just skipping it. So when anybody is planning to design and develop the e-content, first we need to analyze and planning, define the goals, collect the information related to content, then create a content,
Right.
add active elements, and it should be organized in easy to understand. Then the integration of multimedia, design and development, testing of quality assurance, review and revise, deployment mechanism, and publish and distribute. So those are the things one need to keep in mind if anybody is interested to design. And these are some of the challenges which may arise when you are developing the e-content.
Right.
Balance pedagogy with technology, time, content upgradation, and varied learners.
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am,
And application just for half a minute. So these are the various areas where one can apply the e-content. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, ma'am, for this detailed and very well explained presentation on instructional design for development of e-content. We appreciate your presence and your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, my dear viewers, that was our day 3 session on instructional design for development of e-content under the umbrella theme of instructional design for techno-pedagogy integration. Well, that's a training program. We are wrapping up the session over here. I'm sure we'll meet tomorrow with yet another exciting journey and some more useful insights on day 4's session. So, with this, it's a wrap. But before I leave, let me give you quick updates regarding the textbooks. They're available for grade 4 and 7 on Amazon, Flipkart, and NCERT website. Please purchase them from there and also take a look at the schedule, what's all coming ahead. So we are through with all the sessions and you can watch them again on our YouTube handle. In a short while from now, you can watch a session Sahयोग where we will be talking about encouraging physical activity and offline hobbies. So with this, it's a wrap. This is me, Harpreet Kaur, taking leave of you. Namaskar.